on this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.
It's time for politics.
So to be honest, whenever I'm challenged, this is now the third or fourth time in the last 2 months somebody's challenged me on some of these quasi-political arguments, and they're really talking points. I can tell you where they come from. It's like you have no facts, you know. I will say that I'm tired of non-white people telling me that the Democratic Party has had the history of racism. I think that is like fundamentally, historically, contextually wrong.
Yeah.
They couldn't prove it if they wanted to. And I almost did this, and I was so frustrated looking back on the transition of quote unquote segregationists, people that did not want to abolish slavery. And I was going to pull I almost did this, but I'm like, yeah, that's beyond petty. I'm doing the work to fight an argument I don't necessarily agree with.
And one that you're probably not going to win in the long run.
Yeah, because they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like I can tell you all day that this Party of Lincoln nonsense is not accurate.
I mean, it'd be one thing if like the Lincoln Log Republicans or whatever they call themselves, the Log Cabin Republicans, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I like Lincoln Log Republicans better, but if they actually stood for, I mean, it's kind of like evangelists in a sense, right? It's like
the
evangelicals, yeah, where it's like, you know, this I'm going to preach all of these values, but I don't actually believe them. And that's what I feel like you get with this revisionist history of Republicans, where it's like, Abe Lincoln was a Republican, and it's like, yeah, okay, like that. In a sense, it's like looking back on history and saying, well, the swastika was always bad. Anybody that ever used the swastika, even before Nazis, was a Nazi. And it's like, no, that's not really how that works.
Right.
I think, and this is part of where you and I mean, I know we agree on several things, but in this particular context where we're talking about like the debate and arguments between people, like the disingenuousness right behind this is where I take such issue. I'm not looking like when this guy posted the stuff about Ernest Rawlings or Hollings, whatever. I'd never heard of this dude. Right? I'm like, who is this? Did Biden really eulogize some former KKK member? So, like, I watched the video that he posted, and then I'm, like, looking on the guy's Wikipedia page. I literally did a Google search for, you know, Ernest Hollings KKK, and I could find nothing that was like, dude was a former KKK member, right? Or was a member of the KKK while he was... I'm like, the only thing that was even close was that he was pro-segregation when he was in office in South Carolina. Like, and yeah, I'm not like, yeah, pro-segregation, that's totally cool. But I'm
in
like...
South Carolina.
Right, South Carolina.
Pro-segregation in South Carolina. Right? Pro-segregation in North Carolina.
And what was his response, right? When, through all legal channels, they were rebuffed their attempts to stop segregation. He said... guys, we got to do it. The law says we have to do it. Ultimately, that's what matters so much more than the rest of this. That's where I'm starting to have an issue, right? Is that there is a belief amongst some of the people in that group that the law no longer matters, right? The law, because it was written by evil people who are pedophiles, you know, is somehow wrong, and we can just ignore it. We are now all above the law as long as we are fighting for, you know, I don't even know. I don't know what we're fighting for anymore. I'm frustrated.
And
I don't know if you can tell.
I'm frustrated also. Like I don't, like you mentioned this.
I mentioned a lot of things.
You said, like, you mentioned a hit job, and I think that it's not a hit job. It's like, I think that these groups have figured out the weakness of society. It's us versus them politics.
Sure.
And that's where it's like we're going beyond petty. We're going to this place where nothing gets resolved, and you keep these little silos of of influence, you keep the impact of these dumb laws like that just overarch. And most of them are not even federal laws; it's all state laws, and most people don't even realize that. So when somebody can say to me, "Tell me one law that Republicans passed that was racist," I'm like, "So which group of like?" So are you saying Republican ideology or Republican the party?
I really wanted to be like, my dude, we live in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Like the Republican-controlled state legislature has been reprimanded repeatedly now for gerrymandering based on racial profiling or ethnic profiling. It's like,
Right.
what part of that is not racist?
How do you not like? It's a matter of.
And I love the argument that like you can only point to former KKK members like David Duke and the dude that's running in Georgia. And I'm
you
like,
stop being racist when you stop. Like,
okay.
Like,
He was trying to equate that to Ernest Hollings, where he's like, oh, well, he was a segregationist, and now he says he's not a segregationist anymore, and so that makes him, that makes him okay. And I'm like, well, based on what he said, yeah. If there was there were former Ku Klux Klan members who have now come out and been like, nah, man, that shit's wrong. You know what? Those dudes are okay. I'm not, do I say, well, what you did was okay? No, but they've atoned for it. They have apologized, right? Like they've done, I'm not saying everybody, but I'm just saying like in the cases of people that I've seen in the news and whatnot, that's a completely different situation.
But the argument always has to be for like these apologists for the Republican Party. They have no arguments.
Right.
To hear the rest, tune into this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.